African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
And welcome on another magical live safari experience where all kinds of wonderful African animals abound. This is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
And a very good afternoon to all of you watching around the world. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have the amazing Brian on camera with me. Brian, the woodland ninja thumb.
Oh, yeah.
Is the woodland ninja thumb looking a little larger today?
Yep.
I think there's a little bit of growing going on. Must be something in the water. And for those of you that are just joining us, welcome on Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So right up on the northeastern corner of our beautiful country. We're coming to you live, which means it's also interactive. So you can send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarthTV. We've got all sorts of exciting things planned for you. James in the tent, entertaining as always, Brent out on drive, and of course the amazing Stefan Winterboer on foot. With our live safaris, you just never know what to expect. I'm starting to feel a slight absence of elephants in my life. So the plan for my afternoon sunset safari is to go off and see if we can't find some of them. And ever since we've had the rainfall that we have had, which we're very grateful for, ever since we've had all of this rainfall, it seems that the elephants have deserted us. Luckily for us, not everything has deserted us, and we do have some spotted cats for you. Let's jump on board with Brent.
Well, welcome on today's sunset safari, and the information we received was correct. That is Shongile, the female cub of Queen Karula, the dominant female leopard. I'm sure Hasana, the male, is around here somewhere, but my name is Brent Leo Smith. I have VM Dornbach on camera, and we're lucky enough to be with a little leopard. Now, they can be quite playful when mom's away, and I'm just wondering where the young male is. I think she keeps looking down to the north of us, so I think probably a good chance that young Hasana is there. And she's exquisitely beautiful, growing so quickly. It's been quite a while since I've spent some time with the cubs, so great to catch up. They've got so big. Oh, there we go. Is she off to go search for her brother, or is she just sniffing her surrounds? Now, quite often female leopards can leave their cubs for long extended periods. Oh, no, she's smelling a bit of urine. With half a phlegm and grimace there. And as I said, they spend quite a lot of time away from mom. And quite often in these periods is when they make their first kill. It's normally a lizard or a bird or a dwarf mongoose. But this is where they hone their hunting skills. So hunting skills in the big cats, they're not really taught, as that they are instinctive. So they're born with those skills, and in these periods, stalking little creatures that they come upon while their mum's out hunting for dinner is where they perfect those skills. Where are you off to now, madam? And isn't that a pose we've seen her mother in many times? Feet up on the log, trying to get a better look of what's up ahead. Oh, she keeps staring to the north, and I'm pretty sure Hassan is there somewhere. You can see, not starving, but can definitely use a bit of a meal, and that's what Mom's up to at the moment. She's hunting She was last seen near Philemon's Dip, quite close to quarantine, but much easier to find where she's left cubs and then wait for her to return than to track her. And Queen Karula is a notoriously difficult leopard to track. She changes direction all the time. Absolutely exquisite. Now remember, this is a live safari, so she's going to disappear and we're going to try keep up with her. So while we do that, let's go bid a good afternoon to a highly entertaining individual who's in the strangest office in the world.
It is not the strangest office in the world, everybody. It is the most wonderful office in the world. My name is James Henry. Hello to you all and welcome on the Sunday Sunset Safari. This is a lot of S's on camera today. The inimitable Hoppy Virus Brain. There he is. That is Gendre, everybody, and I know you've all missed him deeply. This is because when he was on leave, he went diving in the water and picked some horrendous dread disease up in his sinuses. He's been laid low with a fever of well over 100 degrees for the last 4 days, but he's stoically got out of bed. We dragged him over here, fed him some drugs, and now he's sort of doing his job. If I go out of focus, well, it's his fault. Now, we have a couple of new things to show you sometime today. We'll get to these during the course of the drive. One of the things I just want to show you before we sort of kick off too much is something under the microscope, and we'll just go there now. Now that, of course, is something very important to show you because of all the great animals of Africa, this is one of them. Well, it's kind of a vertebrate relative, is the one that we're not allowed to show you. This, of course, is a rhino beetle, and there is its horn, and this is the only rhino that you're likely to see on Safari Live, unfortunately, and that is because it is... Sorry about that, we just have to work out our coordination again. That is because, of course, we do not show rhino on this show. In lieu of the rhino poaching epidemic, and we just don't want them to be seen at all. So now we have this beautiful rhino beetle here. Now it's a kind of dung beetle, everybody, and the dung beetle, there he is. He will eat sort of dung. He is a dung beetle, but he just happens to have a very impressive horn. Do you like his horn, Gendre?
Not quite so.
There we go, everybody. Gendre is back. You heard him speaking there. It's the first word he said in 2 weeks. Well done, Gendre. Whatever we gave you seems to have worked. Marvellous. Now, Brent, of course, is looking for Karula, the great queen of Djuma. This is not Karula, don't worry. That's a very macabre joke, wasn't it? This is a leopard, though, and it's a female leopard. And were you to be attacked by a female leopard, that is what would befall you. So quite impressive teeth. You can see they're about probably 2 inches long at the top, slightly shorter at the bottom, about 1 inch. And you can see that this leopard, apart from being in desperate need of dental attention, was quite old. And we can see that from the bluntness there. You can see they're quite blunt. But not as old, I wouldn't say, as Karula. Well, probably about Karula's age. If you next time you see her yawn, check out her teeth. They're probably about this blunt, but you can see they're cracked all the way down there. That could have had something to do with the boiling process that took place. Our nail is disgusting. I apologize for that. I'll have it cleaned by the next time you come to the tent. Now, you can ask us any questions you like during the course of the drive. Of course, hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. It'd be lovely to hear from you, and you can ask us any questions about the artifacts you have here. I will try and answer any questions you have about Gendre's disease and whether or not he is in fact going to survive through the course of the next 3 hours. Good. Then, the other thing that we have here is a canid. And this is very special. I'm not sure where they got it. I suspect from a breeding project. But this is a wild dog. This is an African wild dog. And during the course of today and over the next week, because of course we'll be in here for the next week, we are going to have an extensive look at this magnificent skull and all the other lovely ones that we have here. And I'll show you the difference in the canid and felid dentition. And we'll try not to damage ourselves with them. Marvellous. Right. Gendre is now on his last legs. I'm going to try and revive him. While we do that, let's head across to Steph and find out what he has to show you this afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome to this PM bushwalk with myself, Steph Winterboer, and Dave is on camera today, and we have been running to get to the side of Djuma. I must be honest with you. If it was a hot day, I'd be shining if the sun had been out today. The reason being is that we wanted to get to a piece of Djuma that we don't really come to that often, because we have this big signal dip, and bringing you the sort of live magic that we do here from time to time requires us to run from patch of signal to patch of signal. But anyway, we've done it, and we've got a pretty special afternoon hopefully lined up for you. We don't quite know what we're going to be finding in here, mainly because we hardly ever come in here. So although we know this patch of bush quite well, we don't really know what's been in here, what's going on here, what came in here last night, what didn't. I can already see from the tracks that were on the ground that there's a possibility of some hippopotamus here. Don't know. For those of you who are watching this morning, Brent heard the Nkuhuma lion pride catch a hippopotamus, or at least try and catch a hippopotamus last night. And for the last 10 minutes or so, we've been following a sequence of tracks leading us into this area. The lions moved off, they didn't catch the hippo. The hippos moved into this area, and there's a little pan just in front of us here, and I want to go and see if that hippo potentially is hiding up in that pan. So come along, let's go and have a look. It's literally just around the corner here. Now, you've got to be a bit careful with hippopotamus. They are... also... Okay, we've got vervet monkeys calling just off to our right-hand side here. Left-hand side, sorry, excuse me. I'm so excited, I don't know what hand... Okay, so vervet monkeys calling. We need to get there. Come with us. We're going to temporarily abandon our hippo search, and in lieu of getting into an area as quickly as we can for where these monkeys are calling from. They could be calling, it sounds like they're calling at a predator, could be lion, could be leopard, could be cheetah, could be wild dog. Any of those these monkeys would call at. A little bit too far away for me to get that type of call on this microphone. But let me just say, they're probably about 200 or 300 yards from where we are now. Now, you might be thinking, are you crazy running off towards monkeys and lions? Now, well, yes, in a way, but what we're going to do is slow down when we get there. But before we do, and while we're going to hightail it into that area, I think what we're going to do is go and have a look at what one of the others are doing. And we'll catch up with you in a little bit when we get there.
Look at that absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous face. Isn't she absolutely exquisite? We still haven't got a sign of her brother yet, but I think he's in the vicinity. And she's just lying on top of the termite mound, waiting for Mom to hopefully come back with dinner. Now, we've started a new game recently, so I'm going to tell you 3 facts about leopards, and 2 of them are going to be the truth, and 1 of them is going to be a lie. Now, the first fact is, I got a good one, is that in Africa and other parts of the world, occasionally big cats turn to man-eating, but the animal that has apparently eaten the most people, a single man-eater, was a leopard. Now, the second fact is that leopards can't swim. And the third fact, now I've got to think. What is the third fact? The third fact is that leopards can run at 24 meters per second. Okay, there are your three facts. Leopards can run at 24 meters per second. Leopards can't swim, and a leopard was the largest, in terms of man-eating, was recorded eating the largest number of people. There we go. Those are your 3 facts. 2 of them are true. 1 is a lie. Okay, I'm just going to move forward a little bit, and we've got Rexon joining us, so he can also have a visual. Okay, so to get your answers in on the 2 truths and a lie, you can vote on Twitter, and there will be a poll up to see who thinks what is what. But the one thing that's definitely the truth is that this is an absolutely gorgeous little animal. There we go, little Shongile. Now, for those of you who might be new and wondering, what is Shongile? That's a funny sounding word. It is a Shangaan word, or a Tsonga word, which is the local language here, and it means exquisitely beautiful. And that she is. Now, I wonder if her brother is down towards the beginning of a little river system. She keeps checking down there. So somewhere around here, possibly the little male cub is. And his name is Hosana, the little prince. Now, there's quite a few people who are wanting to come see these leopards, so we will have to make space for other vehicles just now. But I think while we do that, we're going to go look for Mom. And I think Steph might be on the track of Queen Karula, if he can hear Monkey's alarm calling. Incredible patience shown by these cubs. Now, as they get older, the female leopards will leave them in sort of more exposed areas like here, but when they're young, they're left in very, very thick areas, normally around little river systems. But now they're old enough to avoid certain threats, and we've seen these cubs be chased by wild dogs and by baboons, and they've managed to survive so far. So valuable lessons taught there. And remember, if you want to ask us any questions about these incredible cats, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or questions at WildEarthTV. Remember, when you're voting for the 2 truths and a lie, don't forget to put the hashtag Safari Live. Now, someone was asking about, look how big her paws are, and she's still got to grow into them. Lionheart was wondering noticing how massive her paws are. Well, she will grow into them eventually, and she's just over 9 months now. Now, as she gets closer and closer to that year mark, her chances of expiring are a lot less. So basically, leopard cubs have about a 70% mortality rate till they reach a year. And once they've reached a year, that drops rapidly down to about a 10 or 15% mortality rate, again till they reach sort of 13 or 14 years and they get older, and that mortality rate rises again. So she's nearly there. She's learnt the lessons about avoiding hyenas, wild dogs, lions, elephants, and all the other fantastic creatures that occur out here in the African bush. So, here are the polls are in. 44% say that fact number 1 was a lie, and then it was 50% say fact 2 was a lie, and 6% say fact 3 was a lie. Well, in fact, it was fact 2, so 50% of you are correct. Leopards can swim, they just don't like to do it. And that man-eater of Rapanthwang, I can't really pronounce it, in India, was credited with hunting and killing over 800 people. So that is the largest ever recorded man-eating spate for one cat. I think it probably got a few more added than it really did. You probably find there was actually quite a few more cats that were snacking on people at that time. Okay, so there's someone else who's trying to get into the sighting. I don't think she's going to move. We'll definitely come back here a bit later. And while we do that, James is going to show you the inner workings of some creatures.
Yes, we are, everybody. This is what it looks like when you've been eaten by a leopard, I suppose. Anyway, that's ridiculous. What I wanted to show you about this leopard skull. I've been doing my researches, you see, and what I wanted to show you is the different kinds of teeth that we have here. And what we have is a molar. You have got two of those. Three. I had two removed, I remember now. There's one molar. Those are the premolars. That's the canine. And these are the incisors. So that is the dental formula. And the dental formula you would read as, well, you'd read it top over bottom. On the top you'd say 3I, 1C, 2P, 1M. And then on the bottom, if we look over here, you can see the same thing, one molar, but two premolars, well, same as the top, really. And all the cats have a slightly different dentition, but that's basically how the leopard's dentition works. So if you happen to be a budding dentist, well, then now you will be fascinated beyond measure. If you are not a budding dentist, you might be asleep. But wake up, because I have something else to show you. There is a monkey's skull. Now, this monkey was older than Methuselah. It also had tremendously buck teeth. You can see that. It was in deep need of the same orthodontist who looked after me when I was a child, thankfully. Otherwise, of course, I'd be scraping the lens with my front teeth. But luckily, that is not the case. And the reason I'm showing this to you, of course, is because Steph is following up on this thing, alarm calling. Now, it's probably, or most likely, alarm calling at a leopard. That is what monkeys like to do. It does have the most startling sort of humanoid feature, I always find, when I look at that monkey. And often I think it's difficult when you're looking on the screen to see the difference in the sizes of these animals. But this is the leopard skull next to the monkey skull. And you can see how enormous the leopard is in comparison. This is an old monkey. I suspect an old female. I know it's old simply from the way it's been weathered and from the calcifications on the skull, which indicate that it was probably a very old animal when it died, possibly even of old age. Where it died, we don't know. But you can imagine, I mean, that's one bite. And it would hurt quite a lot, don't you think? Yes. Now, Haley, you're 7 years old. It's lovely to hear from you, Haley. We especially love to hear from our young wilderness enthusiasts. And you want to know how many skulls we have here. Well, let's have a quick look. I'll ask Jean-Andre to take a step back. Don't fall over, Jean-Andre. I know that you're very tired and ill. Right, here we go. Well, we've got 3 there, Haley, and we'll just count them over here. I'll just quickly tell you exactly what they are, and we'll have a look at them in some detail over the next week. That there, if I'm not mistaken, is a jackal. There is a civet. There is a genet. There is a honey badger, believe it or not. That's a serval over there. This is a dastardly baboon. Very big indeed. Then we have, obviously, an impala, very old one. We have a red duiker, which you don't get here. That's a grey duiker, which we do get here, of course. That's a springbok, which we don't get here. Steenbok. And then up at the top here, obviously, we have a beefalo, a great big beefalo, who's had his nose bitten off by the Nkuhuma pride. And then we have a wildebeest. His name is Walter. He looks a bit miserable, I must confess. And there is Zebulon, the zebra, who could have been a racehorse, we're not really sure. Okay, good. And we've got a couple of other warthogs and things down on the bottom shelves, but while we try and count all of them, Haley, I hope you counted them, and then I want you to tell us, please, how many I showed you. That'll be a good thing for you to do. Hashtag Safari Live. Let's head across to Steph and find out if he's found what those monkeys were going at.
Well, today seems like the day for fast marching everywhere. We got to the place where the monkeys were calling. They were calling from inside this marula tree right here. They've now run away as we approached the tree, and no sign of anything. They stopped calling, and I'm not even joking to you, literally when we were just at that line of trees over there. They were still calling. I think that I'm going to be with Brent on this one. I think that Karula, a female leopard that lives in this particular area, is snooping around here somewhere. There were some kudu that were watching us, watching the monkeys, and of course if there was a leopard anywhere between the monkeys and the kudu would also be alarm calling. So I think that there is a very good chance, high probability, that there is a leopard here. I think that the leopard was a bit nervous with the monkeys calling and with the proximity of the kudu, and with us coming up from the bottom, sounding like must have been like a herd of elephant coming through here. And I think she's moved off. If I were to pick a direction, I would pick the direction that her cubs are in. Now, her cubs are in that direction, probably about 2 or 3 miles from here. As the crow flies, with a deep drainage line or system of very, very thick bush between us and there. A lot of nyala, a lot of kudu, a lot of deka, a lot of impala in this particular area. So I think what we're going to do now is just take a slow meander through here and see if something else doesn't give away her presence. That monkey troop has moved off following the kudu and away from us, but there's every chance that she bumps into something here that gives another alarm call, and just with us being in this area is enough for us to be a little bit closer than we were where we heard them. How far away? Probably about 300 yards, 350 yards from where we are right now. We heard those monkeys calling, and they stopped calling as we got here, which is very typical of vervet monkeys. So don't worry too much about that. We didn't do anything out of the ordinary by running over here. In actual fact, running is always preferable to walking in these instances if you're not too scared about headbutting a buffalo or getting stepped on by an elephant. But I must say, if you do find a leopard, it's well worth it. See, there's a bit of a crime scene over here. It's been astounding the last couple of weeks, probably close on the last couple of months. I know we've had something like 64, 65 odd days, consecutive days of lions and leopard on the reserve. And the sheer number of buffalo that they've been killing is just staggering. This obviously wasn't killed this year. This is a buffalo carcass, probably a year ago. I would say last dry season, maybe even the dry season before. You can see that the sun is getting a chance to bleach the bones, and the rain and sand to scour them clean. And that's what gives them this white. We've even got the hooves that are still left here. Have a look at that. The hoof covering has come off of the foot of this buffalo and is being fed upon over there by the keratin beetle larvae, one of the very, very few organisms out here that can actually digest keratin. This is just keratin, another type of hair. And here we have the skull of the buffalo, washed absolutely clean. Isn't that just gorgeous? I'm actually going to amend my statements. I think that this was probably from a year plus ago. I don't think it's as old as 3 or 4 years, but definitely a year or 2. These are the cocoons of the horn moth caterpillar. So the horn moth caterpillar and the keratin beetle are the 2 organisms that I know of, at least, that can digest keratin. And these funny little protrusions here are the cocoons. Isn't that interesting? Nothing else eats it. You can see not even hyena would be feeding on this. It's almost intact. It's still got its teeth and everything. It's awesome. Have a look there. A grass eater is a buffalo, and definitely one of the big 5. Now, a buffalo eat with their heads down, and because they've got this massive horn and skull, they have attachments for muscles like nothing I've ever seen before. Now, I know you were just looking at that collection of bones in the tent with James, and he could perhaps show you in a little bit how different, how massive the attachment point for the neck muscles are here. This is the attachment point for the neck muscles. The buffalo, of course, would be feeding with its head down, feeding grass, eating grass, looking up, eating grass again, and looking up. And that whole thing takes an incredible amount of strength, needing that, or firstly this hinge, and secondly the muscles to work that hinge. Have a look at that. I can't remember whether it's the axial or the axis bone. It's the vertebra that fuses onto the first vertebra of the spine. Just absolutely amazing. All right. On that note, while we meander through here, we're going to be going to go and see what Jamie is getting up to.
Jamie has turned around and completely changed her route, but for a very, very good reason. And the reason is lying up in front of me in the form of the Nkuhumas. Now, just bear with me one moment. I just want to think about how we're going to do this. I think we need to go around. Got one lioness there, and it looks like the rest of the cubs are hiding off in the bushes over there. There we go. There's one lioness looking very sleepy. I've also heard a report of the missing 2 females, so Amber Eyes and the young female, and where they are exactly. We're just going to do some shuffling around, waving hello to Lex. Let me get out of his way. Which way is he going? Is he going left? Is he going right? Backwards? Which way are we going to go? He is making space for us. What a gentleman. Thanks so much, Lex. Hi, everybody. There we go. Can you still see? Sure. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So there we go. A view of the lions. Thanks very much to Lex for letting us know where they are. I'm going to be speaking quite softly, just because I don't want to disturb the other vehicle, and the lions themselves, of course. And Winter Prison, you of course wondering, I heard from Taylor this morning, you're wondering if there's any word on the missing cub. Apparently this morning, for those of you who missed the sunrise safari, there were only 7 cubs, and all 3 mothers were present and accounted for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can only see 6 at the moment. That doesn't mean that the 7th isn't somewhere around here. I cannot tell. It's quite dense vegetation that they're in. Oh, what's happening there? Big yawn. So unfortunately, no, I can't tell you if the 8th cub has materialized, if it has rejoined the rest of the pride. It's such a difficult thing. We, of course, have become so attached to all 8 cubs, and certainly that cub could be absolutely alive and well. Remember when the 2 of them went missing and they rejoined the rest of the pride about 3 days later? That could well still happen with this missing cub. Might just have got slightly delayed, perhaps distracted by something exciting. So we're not going to worry too much yet, but unfortunately it would be extraordinary for the Nkuhumas to have managed to have raised all 8 cubs successfully, with a mortality rate of way over 50% before the lion cubs reach adulthood on average, and that's just on average. It would have been a very, very impressive feat indeed. But I'm still hopeful. Still hoping that the 8th cub might materialize out of the bush, perhaps just got a little bit too brave and went missing for a little while, in which case I really hope they manage to find it again. But it's impossible for us to know for sure, and we may never know the answer to that mystery. Right now I can only count 6 very peaceful looking lion cubs, fast asleep. While our lions snooze the afternoon away, let's go and see if James has got something exciting up his sleeve.
Stand still, Genre. Do not move a muscle. I have it, everybody. The fossicker-in-chief Taylor McCurdy found us a flea beetle, which I have now recaptured on account of my extremely athletic build. I'm not built, however, like this flea beetle, which has legs much more impressive than mine. And almost as impressive as Genre's, of course, which are... it's jumped away. No! Oh no, that's really irritating. They're so hard to catch. Anyway, come over here and I'll show you what its larva looks like now. check at that. That is amazing. It is the larva of the flea beetle found by our foster care in chief, Taylor McCurdy, and it looks, you know what? I think it's pupating. I think the larva's inside this, and I think this is the chrysalis. That's exactly what's going on. It's turning into one of those beetles. Slowly, it's turning itself into mush, and in fact, you can see the colors of the adult, which I was going to show you, but unfortunately, because I got above myself, it hopped away and I can't show you. Those colors of black and yellow stripes are sort of what the adult looks like. Now, when he's called a flea beetle because he's so very good at jumping. And the reason I showed you my leg was to compare his femur with mine. He's got a tremendously thick femur, and he uses that to jump with astonishing speed and skill. Is that not wonderful? If not slightly creepy. Right, we're going to have a look at the plant that it's on. Now, the plant is called Rus Gwenzii. There it is. Now, Rus Gwenzii is apparently, well, it's not toxic to human beings, but that larva that is sitting there on the Rus Gwenzii is apparently very toxic, and it used to be used by the Bushmen to poison their arrows. They'd squeeze out the insides of that larva onto the arrow, and then they would, well, hopefully catch something for dinner. Maybe a scrub hare or something like that. Marvelous. Very nice there. Now, the other thing I have to show you under the microscope, we, of course, are now in the throes of summer. It hasn't felt like it today. It's a rather miserably cold day, but there's been a lot of rain, which means there have been a lot of insects around. And one of the things that you don't want sitting on you is this thing. Ye olde Spanish fly. That there, everybody, is a blister beetle. And the blister beetle, of course, is born of cantharidin in the abdomen. And what that means is that if it walks on you, you will blister and itch. And in fact, you know, it used to be used, if you can believe it, as the Spanish fly, which of course was where, when I was at school, if people mentioned Spanish fly, you giggled because it was supposed to be some kind of aphrodisiac. What it does is create an irritation of the urinary tract, and that's why people used to think it was an aphrodisiac. Let's have a quick look at it underneath the microscope. I'm just going to put it... sorry, Kirsten. Don't shout at that just now. There we are. Look at its eye. Very impressive eye, and likewise its equally impressive bright yellow antenna, which give it its distinctive sort of look. Isn't that amazing?
Very cool.
I think that's so marvelous. Oh, beautiful. Now, we were told, or Steph was telling you earlier on, that yesterday evening there was an attack on a hippopotamus. Now, we have sight of, I think, probably the very hippopotamus that Steph was talking about, and it's in the dam now. There it is. Thank you, Zumi. Very kind framing there. That is the hippopotamus. You can see it's just opened its eyes. It realizes now, of course, that it's on live television. And it is very unusual for lions to take on hippo, as Steph said, but it's not impossible. And I think now that we're moving out of the drought and there's more and more standing water around the place, I think it's going to be more and more difficult for the lions to take out things like hippo, because the hippo are going to put on condition quite quickly. But certainly they will, in some parts of the world, of Africa, take hippo quite often. And even here, if there is a really severe time, the hippo will get weakened enough for lions to be able to take them. Now, that is not rain falling on the surface. I think it's probably the breathing of fishes, and or maybe not fish, maybe terrapins, because I don't think there are any fish in there yet. It might even be the odd spot of rain, but of course we are completely safe and dry here in the tent, which cannot be said for Jamie. She's with the lions, and no rain just yet.
No rain just yet, although I have to say that the southern, what's it called? Horizon, that's what it's called, definitely looked like it was going to rain a little bit, but that's good. That is good news for our amazing lion cubs. There you go, you can see the clouds. There's still a little bit of light poking through shining down upon us, but it does seem to be getting darker and darker by the second. But for our lions, particularly these Nkuhuma cubs with mange, that rain, any rain, is going to be an amazing thing. It will help to wash it away. Oh, Brian, on the top of the tree there, on the dead tree, could it be? Oh, it's a brown-headed kingfisher. I got excited for a moment, but actually now, in hindsight, woodlands kingfishers are much, much larger than that. I thought we'd seen our first woodlands. I got very, very excited. Equally as cool. That is not to say that this poor brown-hooded kingfisher is not in any way as amazing, but it is not quite what I was aiming for. I was going for the first woodlands kingfisher of the season. Sorry, kingfisher, I didn't mean to insult you. You're still lovely and still very beautiful. Oh, choop, 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 choop. What a lovely call. Cheep, cheep, cheep. Well, the reason that one of the reasons that we focus on watching a bird like that making that call is that for those of you who are really trying to learn all of the different bird calls of this area, seeing the actual bird making the call, I promise you, is the best way of cementing the calls in your mind. So for when you're watching the dam camera and you can't see the bird calling, that's the best way to go about it. Right, so that was a brown-hooded kingfisher. I was talking about the rain in our... Oh, sorry. Just listening to the Game Drive channel, which is crucial to the way we do things. But yes, with the mange, which I think the Nkuhuma cubs are really truly throwing off, they're going to recover, they're going to get better. But the rain will most definitely help the things along, help to wash it away, and obviously bring relief to them as well. So earlier on we were talking about the missing cub, and I said I could only count 6. I was mistaken. I can count 7. You can see when you've got a pile of cubs just like this, all tangled together, it gets a little bit more tricky in terms of distinguishing one from the other. But if we look really closely, there we go. That is the 7th Nkuhuma cub in a bundle of patch just behind the fallen log. So there's 7 of them here. Oh, our lioness is up. Big stretch. Already looking hungry and empty-bellied, even though they've just finished off a massive buffalo bull in the last 3 or so days. And I think the presence of the 2 males would most definitely have reduced the amount of food that they were able to eat. And we can guarantee that this evening they will be hunting, but they might even hunt this afternoon. Just searching for a slightly more comfortable spot and a slightly less visible one. Now, Renee, you want to know why is it that the lions do not run away from our vehicle? And the answer to that, Renee, is that they have no reason to fear us. And these lions, just like these cubs, I mean, we've been watching these cubs since they were very, very small. All of the big cats of the Sabi Sand have grown up from being tiny cubs with the presence of vehicles in their lives, and they have learnt that we do not mean, oh, cute, bit of a head rub there. They've learned that we don't mean them any kind of threat or any danger. We're not going to hurt them, we're not going to get too close to them, we're not going to scare them. They've come to trust us, essentially, and we've become, well, maybe, yes, trust, I suppose, is a good way of describing it. But we're a part of their environment. We're not quite like a tree or a termite mound, which is the analogy I sometimes use, because, of course, we move, and the vehicle does make a little bit of noise, and it does smell a little bit different. So it would be impossible to say that they're not aware of us, but they're not in any way bothered by us. As you can tell, I mean, just look at them. They couldn't look more comfortable and peaceful, although I'm not so sure that one cub is that comfortable, kicking its cousin in the head to try and shift it off. I think that little cub has found the perfect pillow. Doesn't that look comfortable, Brian? Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of. It looks a bit slippery, like it can't quite rest its head comfortably. I'm going to sit patiently here and wait for the little lion cubs to start gambling about, as they are wont to do on these cool, cloudy days. Let's go across to Brent. I heard he was looking for leopards, or helping Steph and Herbie look for leopards. Let's go see if he's succeeded.
Well, isn't that wonderful? Having a lion and leopard already on the sunset safari. Now, Steph heard those monkeys alarm calling, so we've come into the area to give a hand, see if we can't help find what we think is probably Karula, who's mother to that beautiful cub we saw a little earlier. And Steph's checking behind us, so I just want to check through here, and then I'm going to drop down to the Mwati River. We're going to see if she's heading back towards those cubs. Maybe she's made a kill, we don't know. Now, if she has made a kill, she's going to go back to the cubs, she's going to fetch them, and she's going to lead them back to where the meat is. So, good thing we've got people watching the cubs in case she absolutely diverts around us. We spoke a little bit about how leopard cubs hunt, and Andy in Kentucky is wondering what age do they start going on hunts with mom. Well, they don't ever really. Now, a cub is a very bad thing to have on a hunt. They tend to scare everything, jump in the way, so they master their hunting techniques when mom's away, like there. So if a little steenbok happened to wander across up to, or a lizard, anything, they'll chase and catch them, and that's where they master their hunting skills. Now, they're just over 9 months old now, and in certain circumstances it's been recorded that leopards have become independent and survived from as young as 9 months. But normally a female, probably 12 to 14, 15 months. So in less than 6 months, it's likely that Shongile will almost be out on her own most of the time, whereas young Hosana will spend probably up to about 2 years with his mother. And it's very difficult, and you can even start noticing it now. Just before we went on leave, or when I went on leave, I saw that those wild dogs that rushed into where Karula had the kill, and Shongile was already street smart, a long way out of the way before the dogs got very close. Otherwise young Hosana was not quite there, and I've noticed when we had her on another kill that even when Karula was coming back from having a drink, Shongile wasn't sure whether it was her mother or not, so she slunk off and hid to make sure it was safe. So she's already displaying some independence from her brother and from her mother at this young age. Now, of course, there's no set hard and fast rules out here in the African bush. Each day is different, and each individual creature is different on that depending day. So it's very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? It's very presumptuous to make blatant statements, because in the next 20 minutes you could be proved wrong. Now, of course, it's not only the big hairies and scaries that are wonderful. There's also some incredibly exquisite little creatures. So let's go have a look at one of those with Steph.
This is definitely scary. This is one of the largest predatory ants that we find. In actual fact, it is the largest predatory ant that we find out here. This morning, Justin S. asked me on safari, what is the largest ant that we find here? And this is one of them. This is that ant. I don't want to put my finger too close, but I just want to give you an idea of size. Let's see if we can get him onto a stick for you, or at least coax him to come back. Now, they live singly. I've never seen these species of ant actually hunt cooperatively. And then from a very nondescript nest, it's just really a hole in the ground. But you do find them in deep summer all over the place. And just have a look at how majestic this particular ant is. And I'm sure they'll give you a nasty nip if you got a little bit too cheeky. But there you go, crawling off into the undergrowth. Now, that isn't why we actually stopped over here, to be quite honest. He just came out of the undergrowth while we were waiting to show you him. What we came here for is the fact that we spied a tortoise that is quite obviously dead. Have a look over there. We haven't yet investigated this tortoise just yet. It's a tortoise that is lying on its back, but pieces of its shell has come off. And so let's go and have a look and see if we can see what has caused this tortoise's end. This is a leopard tortoise. I can tell that just from its size and also from the coloration on its shell. Now, I'm not going to touch these tortoises. Not that I'm scared of it jumping up and biting me again or something living in it. It's just that I don't quite know what killed it. What it looks like to me is it's been turned over on its back. But with these pieces of the shell broken off, I'm almost wanting to say when we turn it over here, we might even find that there are some tooth marks on the top. No, I almost can tell you exactly what has killed this. This has been killed by a southern ground hornbill. So southern ground hornbill are very large birds with very robust beaks. And what's happened is that southern ground hornbill has used their beak as a hammer and hammered through the top of the shell and picked out the tortoise's insides on the inside and then just discarded it. You probably find that in flicking the last little bits of meat off of the shell on the inside, that the tortoise was then left on its back. Why do I think it's the southern ground hornbill? Because if it were a lion or a hyena that had preyed upon this particular tortoise, there would be teeth marks in the bottom of this tortoise's shell, and then no teeth marks there. And then when we turned it over, the tortoise having been cleaned out like that, but without the legs being eaten, you can see the legs are still intact there, and the tail, and there. So it wasn't something small that had killed this. This was something large that had killed this, but without the canines. Isn't that fascinating? So leopard tortoise, I think, killed by a southern ground hornbill or by a family of southern ground hornbills. They're big birds. They're big. They're like turkey size, and they've got a long beak on them, about this long, and they use that beak to hammer down onto the shell with enough force to break the shell open. They would have then pecked this poor tortoise to death, eaten it, and discarded the leftover shell for us to find here. Isn't that amazing? Can't find its head. Literally just, the head would have come out over here. So literally just the pelvis and the hip that we're seeing here now. It gives us a nice look at the inside of a tortoise shell. This is the pelvis fused to an extension of the hip, there and there. And then this would have been the shoulder blades and the ribs, which have fused together to form the bottom piece of the tortoise. So what we're seeing here, the shell, this is the ribs, pelvis, shoulder blades, or breastbone at least, excuse me. So it's the breastbone, ribs, sternum, pelvis of the tortoise. Would have come up into the hips, and then right here you can actually see a piece of the vertebra there. And then over the top of the shell, the vertebra would have come out over the top, and once again the shell is made up of the hips, the elongated and flattened out spine, the ribs, and the shoulder blades, and the clavicles, I can't even remember what they're called. These little bones over here, collarbones. These little bones, I'm going, touch it, remember my biology lessons. So it would have been the clavicles. And that is exactly what you're seeing. And all the organs then on the inside and attached on the inside with the thin covering, the scales, the tortoise shell, then covering that on the other side. Isn't that amazing? Shame, poor guy. Relatively fresh, you can still see there's some movement there. Although that's mainly just skin. And you know what, the other day, it was probably last week sometime, Jamie had a roving group of southern ground hornbills that were feeding across Djuma, and it was probably them that killed it. There's a tortoise foot. I'm not quite sure if this is considered lucky. Nevertheless, tortoise foot. We'll bring it back to James in his tent. And talking about James in his tent, we're going to send you across there. He's also got a tortoise shell to show you.
Well, I've got what was a tortoise, of course, and I want to show you a little bit about what could have eaten that thing 2 million years ago. 2 million years ago, of course, something like this, or let's make it, I don't know, let's call it 200,000 years ago, rather. This kind of implement, the red-billed buffalo weaver gave me a fright. This kind of implement could have been designed not by a modern human being, it could have been designed by a modern human being, but also by one of our ancient ancestors that used to lope about in this area. And what they would have done is to take the hard edge of this and smash the top of the tortoise shell. Now, I just want to give you an idea of the sound, so I'll put it right next to my head. Now, I'm hitting this thing quite hard, and it's not breaking. I don't think. No, it's not breaking. So you can imagine the amount of force required to break open that tortoise shell. And the only other thing with a tool like this attached to the front of its face, of course, is the ground hornbill, which I think Steph told you. Right. Now, up over here, we have something very interesting. And it's a glorious plant called white jasmine. Now, if you were watching yesterday, Taylor McCurdy, you would have seen her show you one of these on Drive. But this is the creeper in close relief. And what I want to show you, apart from the beautiful flower, which I'm going to smell for you now and then try and describe it, watch how what would we call this? It's not the trunk, it's the stem, has dug into this very thick and slow-growing combretum wood. It's dug right into it, all the way down. So this association has been going on unfettered and unhindered for some time for the creeper to have got in there. So it's growing in a combretum apiculatum or red bush willow tree. Here's one of the flowers that has actually come to fruition, as it were. Gorgeous. You see that, Jean-André? See how gorgeous it is? Jean-André is not speaking anymore again, everybody. I think he might be close to a collapse. All right, now I'm going to smell it. Now, I've said to many of you, of course, that one of the great joys of living out here is that, thank you, Jean-André. Apparently that was an uncomfortable close-up, everybody. We do apologize for Jean-André. One of the great joys of living out here, of course, is the fact that you get these amazing smelling things. And I love smelling different things out here, and it depends on the different seasons. In winter, I love the smell of wood smoke and dust, but in summertime, especially as we head towards Christmas, I love the smell of new flowers. And this smells like a really sweet jasmine, but it's slightly more subtle. It's not quite as strong. Gorgeous. Marvelous. Okay, good. I'm just going to quickly pull my pick these things up as I deal with the comment from Judy H. Judy H, you say, my earpiece matches my shoelaces. It does. Look, the shoelaces are quite cool. The earpiece is inescapably horrific, but unfortunately it's the only thing that I can make work at the moment, and we will desperately try and fix that situation shortly. Let's head back to Jamie and the lion cubs and hope desperately that the new, or the missing one, has been sighted.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look as though the one is back at the moment. I've still only managed to count 7. This little one has gone from one female to the other while we've been sitting here looking for a place to suckle, and has finally settled upon the female that is closest to us. I was quite surprised when I came back to still see that some of the females were lactating. I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if all of the females are lactating, or all 3 mothers are lactating, or if it's only a couple of them remaining, 1 or 2, that are still producing milk, or if it is all 3. If it is all 3, I'm very, very impressed with them. I suppose, though, they've had plenty of access to food and nutrients. She looks so peaceful. Paws crossed, not a care in the world. You can just see hidden in the tufts of black fur those claw sheaths that hide those razor-sharp claws of hers. Lionesses don't seem to be terribly concerned with the fact that they have missed or have lost one of their number. They weren't terribly concerned the last time either that two of them went missing. And Monique in London, as always, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You want to know if we know whether the missing cub is part of the older, middle, or teddy bear cub litter. And Monique, I'm honestly not sure. I've actually been trying to work it out myself, but it's quite, especially when they're flat like this, it's actually relatively difficult to tell the difference between the different litters. So for those of you that have joined us for the first time, perhaps this is your first time seeing the Nkuhuma cubs, you might not know just how many there are. There are 8 of them, but they belong to 3 different mothers, so 3 different litters. Oldest being about 6 months nearly old. No, that can't be right. 5.5 months? It's nearly 6 months old. The middle one's just a little bit younger than them, and then the teddy bear, or the youngest set of cubs, are about a month younger than that. So it's quite easy to tell the littlest ones, and I'm pretty sure I've counted all 3 little ones. I'm just trying to work out if it's just this puddle of cubs in front of me that's a bit difficult to tell. I think that the cub facing us, lying on its left-hand side, I think that's one of the littlest cubs. And then I definitely know, yes, that one there on the right, I think is one of the littler ones. And then I definitely know that the one hidden behind the log that we now can't see at all is a little cub, is a teddy bear cub litter. That was James's phrase, by the way. He coined that term, and I think it was entirely fair. This one here, you can just see the tip of an ear if you look really closely. Tip of an ear, that is also a little one. And then I suspect that the one that is... Which one is the one that's suckling? This isn't one of the littler ones. I think this is one of the middle ones. Monique, after that long-winded explanation, to be completely honest, I'm not sure. I don't know which one is missing. I think it might be one of the oldest ones, but I really, really am not 100% confident in that. And of course, because I haven't had a good chance to have a look at their bottoms or underneath their tails, I don't even know if the missing one is a male or female. We know that we've got 3 males and 5 females, thanks to the dedicated work of our viewers in order to sex them when we first started seeing them all together. But I don't know which one's missing. We'll have to wait and see. The lucky thing is, of course, that it's quite cool this afternoon, so there's a chance that at some point a little bit later they might decide to get up and start playing and being slightly more energetic, as lion cubs often are. As James has told us before, lion cubs always seem to be very busy. When they're awake, they're always up to something, whether it's chewing and attacking a piece of grass or leaf or twig or a sibling or a cousin, jumping and tree climbing, practicing all the things they're going to need to be able to do. Look how big their feet are. I know we often remark upon this, but they just seem to have such enormously big feet. Like big dog puppies, Great Danes and the like, with their enormous, vast, almost clown-sized feet in comparison to the rest of them. Such big paws. They've just got to grow into them now. All in all, this is a thoroughly contented scene, and absolutely beautiful. We're so lucky that we can sit and enjoy these moments in their lives. Twitching. Don't see a fly there. That might even been a dream twitch. Well, since our lion cubs don't seem to be up to terribly much right this moment, I think it's time we sent you back across to Steph, who for some reason is digging.
Now, one of the things that is of great interest to me out here is the traditional, the medicinal uses of all the plants that we find here. Now, yesterday, while we were on safari, while we were walking around, we found this huge bulb. It must have been about this big, about as big as 2 soccer balls next to one another, or 2 footballs next to one another. But I couldn't at the time find the plant that it came from. I couldn't show you, at least anyway, and it's given us some time now. I've now found it. This is the Djuma plant, as the local isiTsonga people call it. The Djuma vine comes out in a plant like this, and attached to it is this bulb. And that's what I'm trying to excavate a little bit here for you to see. Don't worry, these plants are incredibly robust. They get fed on by almost everything out here. They're also a highly traded commodity. In the traditional medicines, this plant is used as a fixative almost. It's, in other words, mixed with a lot of other roots and potions, I suppose, for lack of a better word, and it binds them all together, makes them all work. But just have a look at that. Now this particular one, I'm just finding more and more and more of it as I dig. It's got a funny shape, as you can see there. And it's coming out, look at that. I'm not going to dig out the whole one, I just wanted to show you. Now, in the dry season, we've seen elephant dig up these roots and these tubers to basically get a lot of water. And there's a lot of water inside these tubers. Let me show you right there. Have a look at that. Side of it. Let me just squeeze it there for you.
No luck yet with Queen Karula. We are going to head back to where we had Shongile at the beginning of drive. Hello, little one. Oh, let's get into a better spot for you there. Little dwarf mongoose. Okay, where did he go? He disappear. Oh, there he is. Now, we do apologise for jumping from a little bit to the left. A little bit more. There he is. Hello, little one. We do apologise for the quick jump across to us, but we are live in the middle of the African bush, and occasionally the satellites don't align correctly, or something of that. Unfortunately, I don't know much about tech stuff. I stick to the animals, and this is definitely one of my favourite little animals. The dwarf mongoose. They live in little communities that are called businesses, anything from about 10 to 25, 30 individuals, and are led by an alpha pair. Look at that little nose, sniffing. They are exclusively diurnal, so they're only out and about during the day. And he's making sure we're not up to trouble or a possible threat, giving us a good look. Well, he's got the safety of a burrow to retreat in, and it's an old termite mound that he's up against there. And they will have about 5 to 20 different permanent home burrows that they'll stay in within their territory, but numerous bolt holes. And I don't think this is a home burrow, I think this is a bolt hole. So if there's a perceived threat, they get close to the bolt hole just in case they need to go all the way down to get away from birds of prey mostly, but even young leopard cubs. Oh, a little bit of light coming through. You can see he's got a sparkle in his eye. Here's another one. And quite often, if you sit quietly with them, more and more appear. There we go, a bit of grooming going on. And with all social animals, particularly social carnivores, allo grooming, which is what that is an incredibly important part of their daily rituals to keep the bonds of the different members nice and strong. There we go, you can see that's a little boy. Oh. Now, they're great foragers. Now, they have a very, very diverse diet, from plant matter, insects, and arachnids, spiders, scorpions, occasionally snakes. So, reptiles, geckos, lizards, and one of their favorite foods, if they can find them, is the eggs of ground nesting birds. They also eat snake eggs and tortoise eggs if they can find them. Here we go. You can see how tiny he is. He probably only weighs about 8 grams. Now, Iodine in Illinois would like to know whether people have dwarf mongoose as pets. Now, unfortunately, as lovely as it would seem, having wild animals as pets is not a good idea. Now, while I was growing up, I had a bit of a bigger species of mongoose, the banded mongoose. We had them, a few different ones as pets that were rescued. Now, they don't really fit into the normal pet sphere. So, one of their most prominent features that is very important to the mongoose is its anal gland and scent marking from it. So if you want to have a mongoose as a pet, you need to realize you are going to be scent marked by anal glands regularly. Now, many visitors to our household while I was growing up found that very disturbing, and then jumping up and screaming generally causes the mongoose to bite. And even though they are small, they've got razor sharp little teeth that can inflict a lot of damage. So the best place for the mongoose is out in the bush and not at home. If you really like wild animals, or actually if you really love wild animals, you leave them in the wild. Generally, quite often what happens is that people like the way animals make them feel without consideration to the animals. So wild is the best place for wild animals. Almost a very confused look on the one in front, sort of bemused. Lovely little pink noses here, sniff, 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 sniffing. Okay, well, we're going to leave the dwarf mongoose to sun themselves in what little late afternoon light there is. We're going to keep moving, keep searching for Karula, and while we do that, it seems like Steph's satellites have aligned, so let's go have a look.
And we're back again. Sorry for cutting away from you like that, or crashing away from you as we call it. And back to Brent. You know, getting you this bushwalk from the middle of the bush here sometimes requires some gymnastics on David's part to get the signal past all these bushes. But I'm still with this Djuma plant, this tuber that we found out here. And just to show you how much liquid is actually in these shavings, have a look at how much I'm squeezing out there. Incredible, eh? So a lot of moisture, and that the animals have been using over this drought period. But Steenbuck actually farm these particular tubers. So they dig out these tubers, they'll feed on it a little bit, and then they cover it up again. And that way it doesn't kill these tubers. These tubers are incredibly robust. Even the little bit of damage that I did out here will very quickly be fixed again. And I'm just going to add the soil back so that it composts. Now, Penny Pine, you've just asked me if the soil here is acid or alkaline. I don't actually know the answer to that Penny Pine, to be honest with you. I don't know what the pH level of this soil actually is, to be honest with you. It's definitely not alkaline, because that would, I think that you'd find a lot of potassium here. We don't have that. This is quite a rich humus soil. Have a look at here. You can see how full of compost, how full of humus that soil actually is. Not a lot of clay. If I squeeze it like this, it doesn't really stick together, as you can see there. As we get closer down the slope, we'll start finding more clay, and as we go further up the slope, you start finding more sand. But right here, where we are sort of mid-slope, this is the soil that we have here. Quite a nice soil, quite a nicely fertile soil, and because of it, you get such a lot of plant growth here. Alrighty, so I've now taken that plant and covered it up there. You can see, left that vine all to itself, and we'll carry on. Pat it down, leave it there for the next. Isn't that awesome? Very, very cool thing to do. Alright, let's carry on down this slope. Oh, David's just hung up on some branches over there. Sorry. We've got this big aerial on the back of this backpack, and it sometimes catches on bushes and branches that are just at the right height. Now you can see in front of us it's starting to get a little bit thicker, and that's because we are decreasing in altitude. We're going down slope towards a thicker patch of bush, and we've got a drainage line there, and I want to go and see. I've never walked into this patch of bush before, to be quite honest. It's the first time that I'm in this particular patch, and although I know the drainage line, where it comes, where it goes, I don't quite know exactly what is over here, and I'm quite excited to show you if there's anything there of note. But anyway, while I get myself through this, we are going to send you over to James.
Special here, everybody. It's a millipede, but we're hoping to try and get it to climb over the lens. And it came in here. We've been inundated by beautiful little invertebrates. We've got beetles, and we've got spiders, and we've got this millipede. And there we go. There we go. Oh, isn't he cool? But the feeling of having these millions of or thousands of legs walking over me is just wonderful. He doesn't like my face. Now, I'm sure to many of you this would be an absolutely terrifying experience, but it's only because I'm experienced in these ways that it isn't terrifying to me. It certainly used to be before I moved to the bush. I was most afraid, not afraid, but I didn't like the feeling of creepy things on me. Isn't he cool? Now, he's filled with cyanide, so I'm being very gentle with him, because they can start to smell utterly disgusting when they don't like you very much, and then they open up a very large bottom at the end there, and out of it comes an evil-smelling black substance, which I suppose you might term feces. You might term it something else too if it did it to you. All right, let's release him. I wanted to show you something else while we were here. Go on, you go and play. Yes, come on. Yeah, that's it. Now, we've got two very special we've got one very special caterpillar. No, there's the other one. Look at this one. Look at this rather terrifying looking creature. And it's you see, it's not on the plant that it was found. That's why it's looking distressed about what its dinner is. We're going to put it back on its plant. It was found on something called Dichrostachys cinerea, or the Chinese lantern bush. And what we'll try and do is have a look at it under the microscope. I'll just take the microscope out here. Isn't he amazing? And then I'm going to show you another one of similar sort of thing. Look at that. How cool is that? He's now trying to get into the microscope. Now, he's colored like a tiger, of course, because he's very, very toxic, I suspect. And he's been sitting on Dichrostachys, and he will probably extract some kind of compound from the Dichrostachys plant, which in turn makes him toxic. I think that is just wonderful. Isn't that great? And anything out here, we know this, of course, and Steph will tell you this when he's doing his survival things. Anything out here that is black and orange and red and white and yellow, you don't touch, because it will be toxic. It's a warning. It's nature's way of saying, don't touch this, you'll be in trouble. Now, I'm going to show you one more kind of a caterpillar now. It's in here, and it is blue. A beautiful blue color. We'll do it under the microscope first, and then I'll show you. Oh, look at that. That is just gorgeous. Look at the colors on this caterpillar, everybody. Found on a completely different species of plant. Now, every single caterpillar, of course, has a different host plant, and this one's host plant, Taylor found it on something called the red spikethorn. Look at the little portholes it has. Yeah, now I was rather hoping this question wouldn't be asked. Samantha, you want to know what butterflies these things make? I don't know. It's difficult to tell. We think maybe this blue one, because the adult is blue, the blue Chiraxes, it's possible, but really it's difficult to say. It does have a Chiraxes kind of look about it. It's now sitting on the microscope. We'll have to show you that. You'll see. There it is there. Ooh. Now, there's a storm coming in. I can feel it blowing now. The unfortunate caterpillar has now soiled itself, so we'll have to go and put it back in its tree. It's very scared indeed. Good. Okay, then we will also take this thing out and see if we can't find a Dichrostachys bush to put it back on. because we don't want to. What this is it's a square raisin, or Gruvia flavescens, and at least sandpaper raisin, sorry. And Gruvia flavescens, of course, is not the preferred food of this little thing. Now, we need to find a Dicrostachys bush out here. And I'm not sure where there is one. Here's one right here. So he will be very happily placed on this Dicrostachys bush here. And then he will eat. Get off. Go on. Right, well, while I try and shake off this sort of leonine caterpillar, we'll head back across to Jamie Patterson and see if her search for the 8th cub has gone any better than it did last time. Goodbye.
No cub has come back, unfortunately. We are still with just 7 Nkuhuma cubs. However, we have lost one other member, which is a female who has gone across to have a drink towards the Djuma Dam. So for those of you, James included, who are watching the Djuma Dam camera, keep an eye out. She could pop out any moment now. I think she might be on her way to have a drink. The rest of them are sort of showing signs of stirring. I'm seeing the odd yawn, the odd tail flick. Somebody definitely doesn't want to get up, though. Could you imagine a more relatable expression on a little lion cub's face just before it has to get up and start moving around? Clearly just wants to stay in bed for 5 more minutes, especially when it's got such a comfortable pillow / hot water bottle to keep it warm and cozy. There's no such thing as your personal space bubble when you are a lion cub, or any kind of a lion. They're quite happy to just lie on top of each other. It just goes to show just how tightly bonded the members of the pride truly are. Thoroughly asleep. And as the cubs snooze away, every now and again I see a head up, the odd yawn, but the females don't seem to be too keen on joining their pride mate when she heads across to have a drink. They are still fast asleep. There's one that's settled a little bit further behind the vehicle. There we go. Now, at first when the female got up, I thought perhaps she might be on her way to go and hunt something. But the lackluster response of the other 2 females, the other 2 adult females, suggests to me that maybe she's just gone to go and have a drink. And it's amazing how this wordless communication works between different members of a pride. And Camira, that brings us into the answer to your question, which is, why do lions have black on the back of their ears? And the answer is they have black on the back of their ears and the back of their tails because it's a color that stands out most clearly given their coloration. You can see how in this sort of light, or any sort of light, and in this dense vegetation, the black sticks out very, very clearly. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. One is that the most important body parts in terms of a lion's body language, and they can't talk to each other, but they do talk in the form of body language, and most of that is done through the face, the ears, and the tail. Yes, body posture also plays a big role, but the ears play an essential part of that communication. I don't know if you have any dogs or cats at home, Camira, or perhaps you're a horse person and you happen to have interacted a lot with horses. But you know that an ear or a tail flick can tell you all you need to know about your pet's mood. And if you see an animal with its ears flat back, you know that they're not happy, or the tail thrashing, you know they're not happy. And it works exactly the same way with lions. However, lions, of course, as a social hunter, have taken this one step further, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that lions actually coordinate their hunts using the twitches of their ears. Now, of course, that'll take a long time to prove, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that were the case. It makes total sense to me, because if you've ever watched a lion hunt, it is one of the most incredibly coordinated things you can witness in the bush. And I don't know how they do it. Somehow they just know when to stay put, when to move, when to go somewhere. The way that they move about, fan out or stay together, is absolutely, truly poetry to watch. And all done, of course, without one single word. And that's because they don't need to make a sound. They can communicate through the language of their bodies. Well, that's why they have the black on the back of their ears. The tail also helps cubs to follow them. The emphasis on the black of the back of the tail will also help cubs to follow them when the cubs are still relatively little, especially if they're moving through thick, tall grass. She definitely doesn't have any hunting on her mind, though. And if you want a slightly more humorous sort of interpretation of a lion hunt and the way in which they communicate with each other, you might want to have a look at Billy Connolly's The Wildebeest Hunt. Not now, please. Don't disappear from our show just to go and watch it right now. But if you do find yourself looking for entertainment after our live safaris, or after our sunset safari, please feel free to go and Google Billy Connolly's The Wildebeest and the way that he describes the movement of the lionesses. Definitely not for those of you, though, that are sensitive to any kind of profanity, just to put a warning out there for you. Sorry, I'm now giggling to myself thinking about it and trying to snap back my attention back to the present. Our lion cubs are well and truly relaxed on this gorgeous afternoon, and it seems as though Brent has made his way back across to the Princess of Djuma. Let's go and have a look at a cub of a different kind.
And as I don't know who's more relaxed, the lion cubs or young Shongile, who's coiled herself into a ball as it starts to get a bit colder and is fast asleep. Isn't that just too precious? Same termite mound we left her on. Still no sign of young Hosanna. He's probably sleeping on another termite mound or a bush somewhere around here. But I think our best chance at finding Mum is to sit tight and see if she comes back for the cubs during this sunset safari. Now, the reason they like to sleep on top of termite mounds is it's a little bit safer, gives it a little bit of high ground in case anything happens to start stomping towards her, whether it be a big nasty male lion or an inquisitive baby elephant. It gives her a bit of time and to assess her options and skedaddle in the correct direction. Quite often, with things like elephants, she'll just make herself, well, I don't know if she can make herself more flat than that, she probably can, and it all just depends on each unique situation, what a leopard cub will do when it's encountered by other creatures when Mom is out hunting. Now, the temperature has dropped quite a bit, and the sky is darkening to the south, so there is a chance of us getting a little wet, but I'm hoping that it does rain, but after the sunset safari. Well, hi Haley. Haley is 7 years old. Wonderful to have you with us, Haley. Very excited that you're joining us. Now, Haley would like to know, how many leopards do we have in our park? Well, Haley, that's a difficult question because it's always changing, but adult resident leopard, that means they're always around and they live here permanently, on Djuma and on Arathusa. We have Karula, which is the mom of Shongile, who we're looking at. We have Shadow, and we have Tingana. Those are probably the three we see most regularly. But down on Cheetah Plains, we can see Tundi, and we can see Nkanyeni. So that's 5. Now, also, we can see Shivambaline, who's another male down there, and Quarantine, so we're on 7. And in between, we sometimes see, what's her name now? Big female from the west, Salaheshe. We might see Ingrid Dan cub, we might see Tsakani. So there's a lot, but probably around 8 or 9 that we see regularly. Look at that, fast asleep. Andrew is on his way to come join us here. I've got to talk to him, but I'll talk to him just now. Remember, this is 100% live, so we've got to play the patience game today. And hopefully, while we're sitting here, maybe she starts playing with her brother, who I'm sure was hiding around here somewhere. Or Mom comes back and calls them and takes them back to a fresh kill. Wouldn't that be very exciting? But while we're sitting here, I think it's time to put all your brains into gear with a nearly impossible tree quiz. What do you think, Vim? Alright, Vim likes cats more than trees, but this is a funny looking little tree right here, so we'll do the tree on the termite mound where young Shongile is. You can see the colours of the leaves are quite strange. Some of them are reddish, others are green. Now, I'll give you a little clue. We normally see these trees when they're much, much bigger, but if you know what this little tree is, send your answers through to #SafariLive or questions@WildEarth.tv. There, VM showing you the bark. There we go. And now there's a very particular reason why the young leaves are red, but I'm going to only tell you once someone figures out what the tree is. So there we go. If you know the answer, #SafariLive or questions@WildEarth.tv. What is the nearly impossible tree of today? Now, Scott said he's read that the markings of a leopard are tattooed onto the skin. Is that true? Scott, I've never heard that before, but I would say there's probably maybe some pigment change in the skin where the different dark spots are, but I wouldn't say they're tattooed into the skin. I'm sorry, Andrew's calling me. He's trying to find out exactly where we are, because we're not on a road, we're in the middle of the bush. So I'm just going to help him make his way towards us. Well, someone else is talking on the radio, so we'll wait a second, and while VM gives you a tour of that exquisite coat. Oh, do you hear that, VM? Not sure what I heard. Almost thought I heard maybe Karula coming. Oh, the nearly impossible tree quiz was too quickly answered today. I'm going to have to find a harder tree. Indeed, Raisa, you are spot on. It is a jackalberry. Sorry, Andrew's calling me again. Andrew, just come to the junction, Shabam and Treehouse. You'll get my visual. Here we go. Well done, Raisa. That is a young jackalberry. Oh, okay, it sounds like I'm going to have to do a little bit more explaining to get Andrew into where we are. So while we do that, let's go see what Commander Bond is up to in the tent.